Hello, everyone, and welcome to Networking, Keyboard to Keyboard and Face to Face. I am Wendy McClelland, and with my cohort and partner in crime, Kathy Condon, we're going to share with you our top strategies for both networking face to face, which is Kathy's specialty, and online, keyboard to keyboard, which is where I tend to spend most of my time networking. So we are going to each answer the same series of 5 questions. So no matter where you're networking, you're going to get some information that you can actually go out and use right away. Tell you a little bit about me. I've been in the internet business over 20 years. I built my first website in 1995, and it was actually chosen by the New York Times as one of the best business sites on the net. And since then, I have specialized in helping other entrepreneurs use the internet to leverage their businesses. So if you want to know more, you can go to my website, wendymcclelland.com. I'm going to pass it over to Kathy and let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Kathy Condon. I am a speaker, trainer, and I'm an award-winning author, I'm very proud to say. My book, It Doesn't Hurt to Ask, was named Best Book Finalist by U.S. Book News, which totally fits into the world of business. But my expertise really is in the field of face-to-face networking. I've written a book on it, and here it is. And I've also studied a great deal intergenerational communications in the workplace. I discovered how well it goes into communications, so I also coach and train on communications in the workplace.
Excellent. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so our first question that I'm going to ask Kathy is, what tools do you need to network when you're networking face-to-face?
First of all, let me say, Wendy, that I absolutely believe the minute you walk out the door, you're networking. So the tools that I'm going to talk about are something that you will need on a continuing basis. And first of all, it is a contact card, formerly called business card. And I've been working to change the name, and I now am proud to say it's catching on, to call it a contact card, because people who do not have a business, or those of you entrepreneurs who will keep thinking you can't have a contact card because you don't have your logo designed and everything, I want to get rid of that myth, because you need a card at all times, and you need it immediately, especially if you're building a business. So first of all, your name, address, phone number, and email need to be on it. And make them quality cards. Order them online or from a printer. Do not use an inkjet printer to make them. I had the experience one time of going to a big conference, put the cards in my purse. People had printed the cards, and my water spilled in my purse, and I lost all that information. So as a result, that totally made me realize not going to be having printed cards in the future. Secondly, you need a name tag, and I'm saying you need one. I'm saying it because I want it to make your life easier. And here's what mine looks like. As you notice, it's dark in the back and the letters are white. And the thing of it is that the purpose of this name tag is to make it easy on other people. You know how you've forgotten your own spouse's name or your partner's name or whatever, and you're like going to go introduce somebody. I tell you, this has saved more people. And also, this way, you don't have to stand in line to get the sticky little note that's going to kind of roll off your lapel in the first place. Or thirdly, even when I go to conferences, I take this along, because normally they put them on the lariats that go way down on your stomach. You know, it's not the greatest thing in the world to keep looking down in everyone's stomach. So the whole goal of the name tag is make it easier for you. And mine happens to be magnetic, so as a result, it goes through my lapels, no problem, whatever I'm wearing, and it doesn't hurt my blouses. And the third thing you need is definitely to have some note cards. I am a firm believer that note cards are making a major back to be noticed, and I'm advocating that they be very plain, that they don't say something like thank you on the front, which kind of takes away the whole reason why you wrote the note card in the first place. But the thing of it is that people are not receiving them, and I've really done a lot of work on this, and I've just figured out that if you want to stand up, write a note card, because when you open up your emails, and there's 120 emails, if you see a note in there And if it's a thank you note for a meeting or whatever, you know, you'll say, oh, that's nice, and you erase it, and it won't be kept. So those are the three things, Wendy, that I believe are really important. Number one is the contact card. Number two is a permanent name tag. And I should say, get 2 or 3 of them. For some reason, they have a way of walking away on you, but that's so you can keep them in your car. And the thirdly is having a stack of note cards. And I admit I have cards with different designs on the front. I try to fit them the personality. So those are my 3.
That's awesome. So 3 things that I would say in terms of networking online would be, number 1, your website. And a lot of people have built a website and kind of left it hanging. They haven't added anything to it recently. The picture may not be current. And your website is oftentimes the first place people are going to go if they Google you to find out more about you. So make sure your website is up to date. Make sure that it's got a current photo of you, that it's easy to find information on your website about you and how to contact you, so that you've got an email address there or a contact form that people can easily find you. The second thing is you want to make sure that you have a consistent presence on all the social media platforms that you're on. And this doesn't necessarily mean you need to be actively using every social media platform. But what I recommend my clients do is we talk about first, who is their ideal client? So as an example, if you're a professional and you're trying to reach out to other professionals, say accountants or lawyers, or even business owners or entrepreneurs, likely your potential clients are going to be on LinkedIn. So we want to make sure that that LinkedIn profile is really great, has a lot of good information on it. But I also recommend people go to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and actually make sure that they get their personal name or their brand name reserved on those other platforms. Because right now for you, LinkedIn may be the best platform, but down the road, Twitter might be. And if you don't already have that branded place on Twitter, you're going to lose out. So go and reserve your names on all the platforms, but pick one where your ideal clients are and really leverage that. And then the third one kind of goes back to what Kathy said with the note cards, is the follow-up with people. Is when you've made a connection, you want to have some way to track your follow-up. And I use 2 tools. One, when I make connections on LinkedIn, there's a little tab below the person's profile that says notes. And so in there, I will put notes about a recent phone conversation or follow-up we're going to do. And LinkedIn even has a little reminder system. So you can remind yourself to call back in a week or send some information in a month or whatever it is you want to be reminded of. So those would be mine. Make sure your website really reflects your brand. Choose the one social media platform where you're going to get most of your connections from and make sure it really reflects your business. And 3, have a system of follow-up in place. So the next question is, sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
I couldn't agree with you more about selecting which sites that you want to work on. But Wendy, also, it is important, I think, for people to keep aware of the new sites that are coming along. And for example, Periscope is the new one, you know, they'll have great effect in the future. But again, reserve your name is another one that goes along with Periscope. And I've decided when I was reading about it this morning that I thought, well, I'm going to go in and get my name for that one as well. When you hear about new applications, it doesn't hurt for you to register those names. And with your branding your name in particular, that's why it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely good point. And Periscope is one of those new tools that's just come out in the last few months, and I'm utilizing it now. And I basically call it a recording studio in your phone, because you can live stream for up to 8 hours using your phone. And it's an amazing tool. So people should look into Periscope a little bit more and see if it fits into their business. So the second question for Kathy is, how do you decide where you're going to network?
You know, Wendy, when I first started out teaching networking, which was, I won't even say how many years ago, let's just say it's more than 15, I was living in a community where I could have gone to every single event that was, quote, a networking event. Times have changed, and needless to say, from everything from meetups, which, by the way, are a group that I really like. If you're not aware what meetup is, I would Google that. And there's all kinds of people that get together with the same kind of things that they like to do. Like in here in Palm Springs, it happens to be, hiking was one of them, for example. But I realized that I needed a tool to figure out how am I going to decide what to go to. And after much trial and error and thinking, I figured it out. So let me share with you what my 2 questions are, which helps me determine whether or not I'm going to go to a networking event. I asked 2 questions. Number 1, will I learn something? Or the other question is, will I have fun? So the point is that if I can answer yes to one of those questions, I will very much consider going to it, and I will write it down. If the answer is yes to both of them, that I'll learn something and have fun, you know what? It immediately goes in my calendar and I make a reservation, which is something that I'll talk about on one of my other recordings in great detail, why it's necessary. But I have to say to you, without any question, those 2 things have helped me determine where I'm going to go, because every single time, as I said before, when you walk out the door, you are networking. So why not go have fun or learn something? That's how I choose.
Can you give us an example of some of the events that you might go to where you would learn something and have fun at the same time, and it's also a networking opportunity?
Absolutely. I just went to a lecture that I thought was going to be really of great interest, and it happened to be at a country club that I had never been to. So I thought, okay, good, I can learn, and and since I love adventure, it was an adventure finding the place here. It was an adventure, and it's kind of a lot of country clubs you can't get into around here because they're gated. So I went, aha, I can learn something and I can get through that gate and see what the whole area was. So I actually did. A woman had written the book. I went to the lecture. I had a lovely, lovely time. Met new people, met the artist, the author, and we have working on a joint venture together.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. Will I learn something and will I have fun? That's perfect questions. So how do I decide the best places for me to network online? The number one thing is, going back to what I talked about with the first question, is who is my ideal client? Because I could spend hours every day on a social media platform where my clients don't even hang out. So for me, I know my ideal clients are mostly professionals, business owners, entrepreneurs. So LinkedIn is where I'm going to go to network. So Kathy, how do you decide with whom you want to network?
First of all, Wendy, I believe it is much easier to go alone to a networking event than it is to go with a whole group of people, especially if these people are not really used to networking. Because they know I can talk to people, they kind of follow me around, and the next thing you know, they're hearing the same thing I am, particularly if it's part of my team. I want my team to spread throughout the room, because that way you can really double the number of people that you meet, or even triple it if that's the case. And it is really, really important for me to be in groups or various networking events where the decision makers are. And often I find out the decision makers are by if you go read the newspaper, which is a whole nother story for me to share why I think that's important. A lot of the ads and things will have the corporate heads that are sponsoring an event, and very often those high-level professional people will be at that event. So it's usually my goal to meet them. I have never yet been turned down or made to feel really ridiculous by going up to one of these professional people in a networking event or any kind of event. Because people need to realize people are people, and these folks really, really like different, conversations. I even had the experience once of running into Jamie Lee Curtis in an art museum gift shop. And I was in there and I was talking with, which I didn't know was her girlfriend. We were talking about, ironically, we were standing there talking about note cards. And Jamie Lee came up and we started talking and we just had a conversation. So don't put people up on a really high pedestal just because they have the high title. but I know for a fact that they're the ones I want to reach because I want them to be the ones who, number one, I also have to say they've got all these interesting stories. Particularly I love seeing how people get into what they do and so on. But I am quite careful of who I have coffee with. And I set up coffee dates probably 3 times a week. But as we know, people don't follow up. So I'm usually the one to set those up. But it is important for me, and as you know, and especially with the entrepreneurs, we don't have a whole lot of time to wait. So let's make it effective when we use it.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to online networking, how do I choose who I'm going to connect with? One of the strategies that I use that has worked extremely well is I belong to some really vibrant groups on both Facebook and LinkedIn. And I will observe the people in the groups and I will see who has kind of jumped in, taken a leadership role. They don't have to be running the group, but maybe they're the person that answers other people's questions a lot. Or maybe they're the person that posts a really great article or offers a great tip or strategy. Those are leaders in my mind, and that's who I want to associate with. So I'll be on the lookout for people that are doing those kinds of things, helping others, sharing great information, taking that leadership role, and I will reach out to them privately and say, hey, I've noticed you're doing this in the group, and I'm really impressed. I'd love to schedule a talk with you via phone or Skype so that we can get to know each other a little better and see if there's ways we can support each other in business. So I always tell people, like Kathy, be strategic, talk to the leaders, talk to the influencers, and they're very easily identifiable. And I also agree with the point that the majority of people that we would consider thought leaders or up on a pedestal really aren't. They're just everyday people who happen to have had some more success than we have, and they are most of the time very approachable, whether it's in the digital world or the real world. So Kathy, how do you start a conversation with someone when you're at a live networking event?
Well, first of all, it's interesting, Wendy, that in my book, Face-to-Face Networking, I have a first chapter in the book is on handshakes. It's the longest chapter in the book, and it's probably the chapter that I get the most comments on. To cut to the chase on that, you must have a firm handshake in order to start a conversation, in my mind, or else their brain goes, what a whippy handshake, and so on. But the idea is to have 2 V's in your hands, meet like this, and then press so that, and a couple times up and down. And the thing of it is that what I do is I literally put my hand out, smile, and say, hi, I'm Kathy Condon. And remember, your goal is to make the person feel comfortable. You know who you are. Make sure they know who you are. And I don't care if you met the people 2 or 3 times before. Say your name. And then when I ask them, the great question is, my very favorite way to start conversation is, tell me something great that happened to you recently. You will watch an amazing look on their face, and they'll go like, they're surprised because no one does it, which is really the great thing about it. But in order for them to answer that question, they have to think of something positive. And what we want to do is we want to start connecting something positive to you from the minute you start talking versus, hi, how are you? First of all, you really don't care how they are. We all know that with just this rote question. And so that is really my favorite question. But I have to share with you, Wendy, you'll appreciate this. Yesterday I was at a meeting. I was the speaker at the meeting. And at the end, the man comes up and he shakes my hand. And he's, hi, Kathy. We connected last week on LinkedIn. And, I just broke into a big grin and I said, really? And then I looked at his name tag, which he had a nice name tag. And I said, oh my goodness, we did. Fabulous way at a group to approach someone that I hadn't used before, but I loved it. It felt so good. And we immediately started smiling. So I'm going to start using that. So those are 2 of the questions, 2 ways that I start a conversation.
I love it. And I kind of have the flip side of that, how I make that connection. I was at a meeting I've started my own private Facebook group recently called Social Media with Heart. And in that group, what I'm seeing is a lot of people making connections and then taking them offline as well. So it's, these relationships are interchangeable. But I was at a networking event the other day, and in person, I actually got out of the house and off the computer and met a really amazing woman, really impressed with her. And before I live about 90 minutes from where the meeting happened, so it took me a while to get home. But by the time I got home, she had already made a connection with me on LinkedIn. So it was kind of the reverse of yours. So that's what I love about the world that we're in today. It's a combination of live networking going online and online networking going offline. So for me, starting a conversation can start in a lot of ways. And I kind of started talking about that in the previous question is I observe people that are leaders, and I will reach out to them to make that first connection. And I'll find something of interest about them. I'll make a comment about a post they've made or read their blog post and give them some feedback on that. So it's looking at the people that are doing things with high energy, high integrity, and then reaching out to them. And they're not hard to find, I think. And the more that we network, whether it's in the real world, the virtual world, the more we'll see those kinds of people. So that's kind of my tip.
Well, and Wendy, let me give you a way how not to start a conversation online. Last week, I got asked to connect, and it said, "I hope you remember me," and went on and immediately went into the selling mode. And well, that name really doesn't sound familiar to me, so on. So I dug deep, and the last I knew, I hadn't been in Russia lately. And I thought, oh my gosh, let's just hope this is not the trend about how to start connecting with people. Because I saw right through it, and I want to tell you what I wrote back, and I said, no, I don't remember you at all. And I was curious whether or not she would write back anything, and no, she didn't. But so that was absolutely an unauthentic way of connecting. And you and I both decided to work together because in one of the things that we talked about, if we're not going to be authentic, then we're not going to do this. And I think that's why we are, number one, effectively you doing social media and with me on networking. But the same token, I don't know of many other programs and things that have combined social media networking and face-to-face networking. And we did it because we have the trust, because we were authentic. So you can get off on the wrong foot right away if you say or do something that is far from being authentic and not true at all. And we don't even have to go into the single sites and things like that. But the bottom line is, whatever you do online and offline, be who you are. Don't make yourself into someone you're not.
Yeah, wise advice for sure. And how do you do follow-up, Kathy, when you've made a connection in the real world?
Well, I've already talked about the handwritten note. Without any question, that is normally at a networking event. I will, in an hour event, I'll only want to meet 3 people, and there's all kinds of reasons for that. But let me suffice it to say, with 3 people, it's pretty easy to write a note because, very frankly, I don't go to a networking event every day. I have work to do, and I'm a writer, so I spend time doing that. But I do get myself out networking at least 3 times a week. So I write notes. And then again, yesterday I was a speaker at an event, and I have their contact cards, and I asked them, and they all said, love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So one of the first jobs for me to do is connect with them on LinkedIn. And like you, LinkedIn is my go-to social media site. I personally use Facebook as my personal update of friends. And since I moved to Palm Springs, I have a whole slew of people who are friends in the Northwest and building a community here in Palm Springs. So I have plenty of people to talk to on Facebook without having to make that really part of my business. And when I write something, and I'm a writer for the Palm Springs Tourism Bureau site, those kinds of things I put on Facebook. But basically, it is somehow connecting. And I also want to say, I call people, and then there's a big controversy. I just saw an article the other day. It says abolish phone calls.
Yeah.
Wendy, you and I wouldn't be talking right now if we hadn't had a phone call. And then, now we communicate on Skype all the time. But because you are in Canada and I'm in the United States, thing of it is that Skype is definitely opening all kinds of avenues, and I use Skype as follow-up quite a bit now, and I didn't think I would, but I also believe strongly in a phone call, leaving a message. But the main thing is when you call someone, very first words after saying hello, the question is it a good time to talk right now? People just start chattering away and you're in the middle of something. So I do all of those things to follow up, and that's why I think it's really easy for me to build relationships. But I'm also keeping in mind, Wendy, that without any doubt, I have to be the one to do the follow-up. People aren't doing it. It's sad, but if I really want to connect with someone and continue to connect with them, I know it's on me to make those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm the same in terms of the follow-up. I know if it's going to happen, I'm the one that's going to do it 99% of the time, I would say. So for me, doing follow-up is when I make that connection on LinkedIn, I don't just leave it hanging. I'll go back to the person's profile and I'll pick out a couple of interesting tidbits from it. Maybe the industry that they work in, or maybe the geographic area where they live. And I will send a little, a message in the LinkedIn mail system saying, thanks so much for connecting. I'm always wanting to build relationships. I noticed from your profile that you focus on this specific industry. Are you focused on a specific geographic area? I may have some connections, or if you feel that there's an introduction I can make to someone in my network, please feel free to let me know. And then I'll also say a little bit about me, maybe 2 or 3 sentences at the most, and then I'll ask them for a get to know you call. And I'll set up either a phone call or a Skype call. And it's a way for me to learn more about their business so that I can refer leads to them and be supportive. And also it's an opportunity to see if there's a job to hire me as well. So that's kind of how I do follow up using LinkedIn. So those are our 5 questions, Kathy. Is there any other little tidbits that you want to pass on before we share what we've got to offer people?
I just want to go back to a couple of things, Wendy. Number 1, show up authentic. And show up, if you're going to go out into the networking world, wear something that you feel terrific in. You don't want to keep thinking that, I wonder if I'm dressed appropriately or right. And I got to admit, I've changed clothes 3 or 4 times before I go out to some event. But I don't want me to be distracted by me. I want to be out there and to be able to just talk to people and learn about people because they have a huge amount of wisdom. And the thing of it is that keep asking questions. That's, to me, the biggest thing. You should be the one listening. And the key word is if you do not listen to the answer after you've asked a question, you're down the tubes anyway. Like the great question of what great thing happened to you recently. If you don't listen to the answer, you're not going to be any better off. And if I were asked that question, I would say I just spent a great time with my daughter in Kiowa Island. And the family's from Belgium. And all of those things, Kiowa Island, where is it? Well, it's in South Carolina for the interest people who are listening. And my daughter, why is she in Belgium? How did she get there? There's all kinds of things. So I would say be authentic, go out there and feel great in whatever you're wearing. And the third thing is listen to the answers of questions that you ask.
Yeah, and I would exact same thing, being authentic. when you're connecting online too. And that, to me, means bringing part of your real life into your online profile or personality. And for me, I'm a big animal lover, which most people know because I'll often post an animal video or share about my dog. And, I share little tidbits into my everyday life, which allows people to see that I'm not just a social media person, that I have a real life. And it lets them learn about me, learn to like me, hopefully, and trust me. And then hopefully at the end of the day, maybe become a client. So I think being authentic, whether you're online or offline, is probably the number one biggest success strategy. So because we've given you 5 tips today how to network online and offline, Kathy and I have come together and we've created a program for you that's going to give you even more information about how you can actually network and build your tribe and really make those strong connections online and offline. So Kathy's got a portion of this to tell you about. So I'm going to let her share with you what she's offering.
Well, my recording is easy tips for entrepreneurs to implement. And we answered the 5 questions, and it was really difficult to know where to cut off some of these questions. Like, for example, I have all kinds of ideas of how to start conversations. I have all kinds of ideas of where to go to networking events. Every question we have has really been elaborated, plus many more. For example, the note card. I even tell you what to write in the note card. I know that's a big hang up with people. And also I go into more detail about handshakes so that you don't create your first impression was the handshake. So every question we have, I've elaborated a great deal on it. I think entrepreneurs are going to be very glad that they had the opportunity to hear these simple tips. And I want to assure you that the tips that I'm going to be providing you, you can do it. Just all you have to do is walk in a networking event and doing, like, where do you stand? Who do you go up to at an event? So it's pretty extensive, and actually I'm very proud of it. And I would be honored if entrepreneurs really took it seriously, some of these tips, because that's how you're going to build loyal customers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I've got for people is of my Facebook courses. And the first one is Facebook basics. And I see so many people setting up their business pages incorrectly or using their personal profiles incorrectly. So this is going to teach you how to set up your Facebook page properly, how to make sure that it's linked to your personal profile, how to create the graphics that you're going to use, how to do a whole bunch of little shortcuts on Facebook that nobody's really talking about that I found to be very helpful. And then you're going to also get my second course, which is a video training, and it's my strategies for getting 30 to 100 new likes on your business page every week with no advertising. So I teach you strategies for getting not just the likes, but the engagement and the real connections with people, both on a business and a personal basis. So I've combined those two. Kathy has a great recording of, as she said, all the things that we've talked about on this webinar in much more depth, plus much more information. So we decided to combine the two of them, and they are $69, and you can go to the link below and purchase this package, work through it at your own pace, and I can guarantee if you follow what we're teaching you, you're going to notice increased engagement, increased business connections, and increased revenue. So I want to thank you, Kathy, for joining me on this webinar. I always learn a lot every time I talk to you, and I love the line, tell me something great that's happened to you recently. And the next live networking event I go to, I'm going to use that for sure. And thank you just so much for reaching out and making this connection with me and making that first phone call to me after we met at an event.
It actually is. We met in LA at a conference, and it was actually 2 years ago. And so we did connect, I think, on LinkedIn. I think we've always been connected on LinkedIn. But then this is what happens when you follow up. But notice we went to a live conference first. And again, We can talk about in the future about how to go to a conference and what you do after a conference. And I am very, very open for people to get in touch with me. My website is Kathy with a K, KathyCondon.net, and email is Kathy@KathyCondon.net. So if you have some questions about this or our package, I'd be delighted to answer them for you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Kathy, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again soon. Have an awesome day. So I hope you've enjoyed this webinar with Kathy and I, and we put together a bundle of great tools for you to keep learning about how to network both on and offline. And what you're going to get is my Facebook course, The Basics of Facebook, and you're also going to get my course, How to Get 30 to 100 plus Facebook likes every week with no ads, and Kathy's course, Easy Networking for Entrepreneurs. And together these have a combined value of $79. But we've put them on sale for you, people watching this webinar, for $59. You can get started right away learning how to get more out of your networking, both on and offline. So if you're ready to take some action and get a lot more out of your networking, grab this business bundle now, and it is at bit.ly/network bundle. And you get immediate access to all of the training, both the on and the offline networking tools. Have a grateful day.